and your mother was begging Barack to stop.
Hey guys, how's it going? Are you ready for the show?
Of course I am, you knucklehead. Who do you think I am? I'm Sir Charles Barkley.
I don't know. Look at yourself before you pass judgment. Okay.
David, I was promised 8 pounds of turkey in exchange for appearing on Varsity Blue. Where is my turkey? That is my question.
But have you guys even thought about if Trotch to get fired or not this year?
What are you saying? Is it true? Sure. Indeed. Yes. 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 I mean it this time.
No, David, I will not answer your question until you give me the turkey that I was promised in exchange for appearing on the show. I cannot think until I get my turkey. We are
Varsity
Blues.
If I had one word to describe Varsity Blue, it would definitely not be terrible, you knucklehead. Alexander Prasad.
Your Group 5 bowl matchups. It's Catholics versus Convicts in the Sun Bowl. Will the Fighting Irish have to take cover against the Hurricanes? The Seminoles be hunting Gamecocks in the streets of Atlanta in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. The Capital One Bowl has Nick Saban playing his old team as the Crimson Tide look to swallow the Michigan State Spartans. The Texas Tech Red Raiders will be hunted by the Northwestern Wildcats in the Ticket City Bowl. Urban Meyer's last game as a Gators head coach has him taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Outback Bowl. Your Group 5 bowl matchups.
All right, I'm here now with our Group 5 expert, Peter Saul, also an expert on hockey in Atlanta, if you're curious, or any other sport that shouldn't exist. Let's start with the Sun Bowl, Peter. Formerly a Big Ten tie-in game, but no longer.
Yep.
Miami, Florida, taking on Notre Dame.
Catholics versus Convicts, one of the great rivalries of the 1980s, early 90s. You know what? I'm going to take a little surprise pick here, Alex. I'm going to say the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And you know why? It's because I think.
Please explain to me.
Well, I think Brian Kelly's offense, it took a while for this team to get used to it. But I think now they're finally getting their groove. They have a quarterback options, Dane Christ or Tommy Rees. Michael Floyd's still one of the great wide receivers in all of college football. But at the same time, you're right, Miami is a very athletic team. They have one of the best D-lines in the country, number 2 in the nation in sacks, number 1 in tackles for losses. But at the same time, I feel Notre Dame has the talent and skill to beat a really athletic Miami team.
Well, and Randy Shannon fired.
So
all these coaches that, when they change, you just don't really know.
They might have a Monday Night Football commentator, maybe not.
Right.
Depends what you ask.
John Gruden, I heard the rumors back, I think. I think John Gruden said he's going to coach Miami. Oh. Jeez, they was not let up on that guy. All right, up next, Peter, we have the Chick-fil-A Bowl in your hometown of Atlanta, Georgia.
Taste those delicious fried chicken sandwiches already.
That's great. Thanks. You're making me hungry now. All right, South Carolina, Florida State. 2 teams not champs in their leagues, but very close.
Losing their conference games.
Right.
Two strong
programs. 2 strong teams. Steve Spurrier, Jimbo Fisher.
The old ball
now.
coach, yeah.
Who do you like in this game and why?
I like Florida State, although I do have to give South Carolina a lot of credit. They have one of the most talented teams when you talk about Steven Garcia, Marcus Lattimore, Alshon Jeffrey, 1,400 yards receiving, 17 touchdowns.
In the SEC.
In the SEC.
Right.
Unbelievable numbers.
Right.
And both teams have pretty good defenses, but I do see Florida State coming out on top here. I think they're a great young team that will challenge for a BCS spot in the upcoming years, and I think this will be their coming out party.
Now, what about Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel? Mini controversy. Ponder hurt E.J. Manuel played that ACC championship game.
A loss for Florida State. He did
loss.
play pretty well, though, but I do think there is no quarterback controversy. Senior Christian Ponder has been a leader for the past few seasons for his team. He put up great numbers this year, and I think he'll lead the Seminoles to victory.
Alabama is not going to let up against Michigan State here in the Capital One Bowl. Is Alabama going to win by 50 or 80, Peter?
I'm going to say 49.
49.
Okay. But yeah, Alabama Crimson Tide, they were ranked number 1 for the very first few weeks of the season. They definitely earned that ranking. Of course, Michigan State, obviously a surprise, 11-1 season, but really the only team they beat that was a big upset was Wisconsin, and that was early in the season before they really started rolling with their offensive attack. They got crushed by Iowa, didn't have to play Ohio State, so they kind of had an easy schedule. But there are no standouts on Michigan State, and that's the big problem for me. When you look at their opposition, I feel they're a lot better, with Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson providing over 5.5 yards per carry between them.
Right. A lot of interesting storylines in this game, too. Nick Saban coaching against his former team, Michigan State. And also, Mark Ingram grew up in Flint, heavily recruited by Michigan State, grew up a Michigan State fan, ended up going to Alabama. Great choice, by the way. At least he didn't choose State over Michigan. No. So there are a lot of interesting off-the-field storylines, too. And another game with a lot of interesting off-the-field storylines, the Outback Bowl. On the one hand, you have Joe Paterno, who's been teaching since dinosaurs roamed the earth, coaching, rather, at Penn State. And now you have Urban Meyer, who's burned out after just a couple years at Florida. Those two teams matching up in the Outback Bowl. Neither team having a great year by their own standards.
No. Yeah, the post-Tebow era in Florida off to a very bad start. 7-5. Yep. John Brantley not having a great season at all. He just couldn't fit into that spread offense.
Looks very Stephen Threet.
Yes, indeed. Very Stephen Threet-esque. Yes. Indeed. And Penn State, of course, rough struggles with their freshman quarterback. They switched to Matt McGloin in the middle of the season, beat Michigan in his first full game.
Right.
Took off from there. They did really well. McGloin had over 300 passing yards in each of the last 2 games. I was really impressed by Penn State's play down the stretch. Evan Royster, still one of the better NFL prospects running backs in the nation. I do see Penn State getting a bit of an upset here. I just don't think Florida has it all together right now, although they will definitely
win one for the Gipper.
Yeah, I was about to say, they do have a lot to play for. Urban Meyer's last game, right. And obviously his players love Urban, but I just don't think they're going to pull it off.
Penn State had just a ton of injuries throughout the season, and hopefully some of those are going to heal for the Lions, at least from those rooting for the Big Ten overall. Now, finally, another Big Ten game, the Ticket City Bowl, the classic, the Ticket City Classic. Northwestern Texas Tech. Funny story, Peter. The first line of the release, the press release that's announced this matchup was 2 rabid fan bases will descend upon Houston. Northwestern? Really? Rabid
not
fan
quite.
base?
They're too busy studying, right?
Right, exactly. Tommy Tuberville, though, coaching Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Terrible defense, though. It just head explode.
It's complete opposite of what we're used to
right.
Tommy Tuberville. Mike Leach might be gone, but that air raid philosophy in Lubbock still there. Right. 8th in the nation in passing yards. And on the other side, Northwestern, I really like what Pat Fitzgerald has done at Northwestern. I think everybody has said he's done a great job. Fact of the matter, though, Dan Persa is out most likely, maybe definitively.
Right.
And there's no way this Northwestern Wildcats team can win without Dan Persa.
They're back up like 4 or 5 interceptions against like a 70-23 game against Wisconsin. All right. Promised the conflict between Catholics and convicts. That's a tongue twister. I challenge you to try to say that at home. Miami and Notre Dame. I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Scott, you went with Notre Dame. You're the only person to choose the Golden Domers.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, Miami, you would expect they have all this talent. Notre Dame, not a great season. Miami, Randy Shannon just got fired. They just brought in Al Golden, the Temple coach. Lots of uncertainty there. I think that's really going to affect Miami. And Notre Dame with consistency at coach, I think will make a big difference. I just don't think Miami's going to have their ducks in a row when they're taking on the Golden Domers.
Adam, you went with Miami, as did myself and David. Is it Ja'Cory Harris? Is it the team speed? Or is it Ja'Cory Harris? The Denard Robinson parallel is a pretty strong argument.
Sort of a parallel. Ja'Cory Harris, certainly a slower Denard Robinson. Notre Dame, though, did have a tough time with his speed. And I think it's just the overall team speed of Miami is what it really comes down to. They're certainly a more talented team in terms of that aspect. Yeah, you do have a little uncertainty with Al Golden coming in. How can he take over and what will the impact be so soon? But I really do think that Miami's overall talent, team speed, will prevail against Notre Dame.
All right, let's move on to the Chick-fil-A Bowl. We already heard Peter talk about how much he likes Chick-fil-A, so we got that conversation out of the way. It used to be called the Peach Bowl. Who doesn't like peaches, too? So many foods in this bowl game. To be played in Atlanta, Georgia, directly in between Tallahassee and Columbia, South Carolina, which is where USC is, or South Carolina. I guess, can we say USC?
Yeah, I think so. They're the only USC in a bowl game this year.
Right, well, there you go. The USC bowl streak lives on, I suppose. Mm-hmm. All right, David, you're the only one that went with Florida State in this game.
Well, Christian Ponder will be back for them. Also, I'm looking at the rushing attacks, and I'm going to say that 2 good backs in the backfield for Florida State. SC heavily relies on Marcus Lattimore out of the backfield. I just think that the experience at quarterback and also more depth in the backfield, more fresh legs late in the game, I think that's why Florida State's going to take this one.
But Scott, South Carolina definitely played a tougher schedule.
Much tougher. Marcus Lattimore, a fantastic running back. And they have 4 losses. 3 of them, 2 are to Auburn. Another one is Arkansas. Those 2 are in BCS Bowls. South Carolina, they beat Alabama as well. So they're a very solid football team. They have 4 losses, but they're the very good teams. South Carolina definitely the better body for it throughout the year.
They took Auburn to the brink in that first half.
Yeah.
And Auburn busted out right at the end with that Hail Mary pass or whatever from Cam Newton. Now, the Sacrificial Lamb Bowl, also known as the Capital One Bowl, is Michigan State and Alabama. Everyone agrees here on this set, as you may not be surprised, that Alabama will win by at least 50. But I'd hand the honors over to you, Adam Brewster. Why will Alabama win by 50 points?
Well, you start
it's a difficult argument to make.
Well, you know, you start with the fact that it's Nick Saban going against his old school, which he did kind of desert them, and, you know, it's a chance to say, hey, I am better than you. But really, Alabama is just the much bigger, better, more physical team. Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram will be healthy, and you really do have to look for the fact that if Greg McElroy loses, he might cry again. Alabama way underachieved this year. The 9-3, a severe disappointment, returning much of their starters from last season. It really could get ugly. You saw how well they can play in the first half, like they did against Auburn, who's a much better team than Michigan State. Yes, they'll be going in with a chip on the shoulder, will the Spartans, but it's really just going to be tough to overcome. It's tough after such a great season to see them end up with really a short end of the stick playing a great Alabama team.
Well, I have a lot of friends from Alabama, Adam, and what I've heard from my sources is that Greg McElroy decided that he's not going to lose again after deciding not to lose starting in high school. So Alabama's going to win. Just because the last time he did that, you know, it worked so well. All right, let's move on to the Outback Bowl. Scott, you have Florida, as do I. Adam and David go with Penn State. Mm-hmm. Is this just a win one for the Gipper pick, or is there something more here?
I have written down in my notes, win one for the Gipper pick. So that definitely is something. However, the bigger reason I think Florida has so much speed, so much talent all over the field. Obviously, they've struggled this year going 7-5, but they have 4 weeks to put it all together and have one game to go out there. Florida is so talented, especially as compared to Penn State, that I think they're going to be all over the Nittany Lions. I think Florida will win pretty handily.
All right, David, we don't know how long the other Gipper on this game, which is Joe Paterno, which, by the way, what an interesting storyline. You got Urban Meyer, who burned out at Florida after just a handful of years. Joe Paterno, who's been at Penn State for at least 120. You know, we don't know how long Penn State is going to last with Joe Paterno here, so maybe the same logic works for Joe Paterno in Penn State.
Right, and if you use that logic, then I think they both just cancel out. The way I look at it right here, 85th best passing offense for Florida. That's absolutely anemic. Penn State has won 4 of the last 6 with McGloin under center, and those 2 losses have been against Michigan State and Ohio State, 2 very good one-loss teams. So I think Penn State's been a lot better the second half of the season, and Florida's offense still hasn't got it going. I don't really think they're very good.
All right, in the last game in this set, the Ticket City Bowl, the classic Ticket City Bowl. And as I mentioned, 2 rabid fan bases, Northwestern and Texas Tech. I went with Texas Tech, as did everyone except for Scott. Scott, quickly, why Northwestern?
I think Northwestern is a deceptively good team. They have been for a couple of years. Texas Tech, a down year with Mike Leach leaving. It is in Texas, which will help Texas Tech's cause. I just think Northwestern is a better team, despite losing Dan Purser, which will hurt. I still think they're a solid football team in comparison to Texas Tech.
Right. Northwestern's backup quarterback threw 4 interceptions against Wisconsin in that 70-23 shellacking. Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's all for section number 5. Let's move on to section 6 now. Take a look at what's on the schedule.
Your Group 6 Bowl matchups. Gig'em, Tiger Bait. Les Miles and the LSU Tigers play the Texas A&M Aggies in the Cotton Bowl. MAC champs Miami Redhawks face the Middle Tennessee State University Blue Raiders in the GoDaddy.com Bowl. The BBVA Compass Bowl points toward a big cat fight of the Pitt Panthers and the Kentucky Wildcats. And finally, the Nevada Wolfpack and Boston College Eagles crave victory in the Fight Hunger Bowl. Your Group 6 Bowl matchups.